I moved into the old house 3 weeks ago. It wasn't my first choice, but after my father's death, I needed a place to get away. I thought this big, creaky house would be perfect. The dusty corners and quiet rooms felt creatively inviting. I imagined writing peacefully in my new little office, surrounded by its warm walls. But I quickly learned this house had secrets. The first night was calm. I set up my laptop and typed away, listening to the soft sounds of the town outside. I thought it would be great for inspiration. But on my second night, something woke me up around midnight. I heard footsteps above me. At first, I thought it was just the house settling. I told myself it was nothing. I felt a bit better. But the sounds continued. They grew louder each night, like someone was pacing back and forth above me. Sometimes, I could even hear soft giggling. I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or simply imagining things. My heart raced at the odd noises. I'd sit up in bed, trying to listen closely. Some nights the air felt colder, and I could have sworn I felt a chill. One evening, while I was cleaning up my office, I noticed the old photos on the wall. They had shifted, arranged like someone had been playing with them. The faces looked familiar but I didn't know them. A chill ran down my spine as I leaned in closer. I wondered what was happening. Was my mind just playing tricks on me? As days went by, little things began to go missing. One morning, I couldn't find my favorite pen. I checked everywhere until I found it under the sofa. I was sure I hadn't left it there. I started to worry that I was losing my mind. The giggles continued, echoing softly while I tried to write. I paused often, glancing around the empty room, feeling anxious like something was there. I kept thinking of the children in those photos. Did they belong to someone who lived here before me? One late night, I felt particularly on edge. I sat glued to my laptop when the footsteps returned, louder this time. My heart raced. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I grabbed my phone and dialed for help, but I couldn't find my voice. My hands shook uncontrollably. Then I heard it. A small voice whispered, "Come play with us." I froze, staring at the dark staircase leading up. I wanted to convince myself it was just my imagination, but I was scared. I glanced back at my screen, trying to focus. I wasn't sure what to believe anymore. Suddenly, my phone rang, shattering the silence. I looked down, no one was there. I felt a weight settle on my chest. Some part of me knew I was not alone. I glanced toward the staircase again, my breath caught in my throat. Those playful whispers still lingered in my mind. I shivered, gripping my phone tightly, knowing this was just the beginning. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. Each morning was just a reminder of the strange happenings. My nerves felt frayed, like wires about to snap. I decided it was time to uncover the truth about this house. That day, I ventured out to the local library. The town was small, with familiar faces that greeted me, but they always looked at me with a mix of curiosity and pity. I scanned through old newspapers, searching for any mention of the house. My heart thumped with excitement and fear. After what felt like hours, I stumbled upon a story from nearly 50 years ago. It detailed a family who had lived in my house. They had mysteriously disappeared without a trace. The article was old and faded, but I recognized one of the names. The mother was said to be an artist. I glanced at her picture, and the face was hauntingly familiar. It looked strikingly like the woman in one of the photos in my office. I felt a chill creep up my spine as I pieced together the fragments of their story. They had been reported missing around the same time the children in those photos began appearing. Could they be the same kids? What really happened to them? As I read on, the librarian approached. Her expression turned serious. "You're looking into the old Matthews house, aren't you?" she asked softly. I nodded, feeling a prick of dread. "Be careful. Some say it's haunted." Children's laughter has been heard, and strange lights appear at night. Those who investigate often leave with more questions than answers. Her warning lingered as I left. What else was hidden within those walls? I returned home, anxious to find more clues. When I opened the front door, I was greeted by an eerie silence. The house felt different. In the living room, the photos on the wall seemed shifted again, their faces now staring at me with intent. My stomach twisted as I looked closer. The woman from the article was looking directly at me, her eyes bright with an unnatural glow. Then I noticed it. A flash of movement in the corner of my eye. I turned sharply, but nothing was there. My pulse quickened. I was exhausted from lack of sleep and too many strange occurrences. I took a few deep breaths, trying to calm myself. That's when I saw a door at the end of the hall, slightly ajar. I could have sworn it hadn't been there before. My curiosity got the better of me. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting someone to follow me. Stepping cautiously, I made my way toward it. But my heart sank when I heard the soft sound of a child's laughter drifting through the crack. It was sweet and haunting, echoing through the empty hallway. I paused, feeling a deep sense of dread. Should I turn back? I hesitated, but something inside urged me to push the door open. As I took a deep breath and gripped the handle, I realized I had no idea what lay ahead. Did I really want to know the truth? I opened the door slowly, and everything went dark. I stumbled forward, disoriented. The darkness surrounded me like a thick fog, and I took a tentative step, my heart racing. My hand brushed against the wall, feeling the cool surface, grounding me. I needed more light. Just then, a flicker illuminated the space, illuminating the room for a split second. I caught sight of what looked like an old nursery. Faded wallpaper peeled from the walls, and a small, dusty crib sat in the corner. The air felt heavy, thick with memories and sorrow. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. There was no answer, just the lingering echo of the child's laughter, now faint and playful. I took another step into the room. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but my curiosity tugged me deeper. As I explored, shadows danced in the corners. I spotted old toys scattered around the floor, a plush bear, a doll missing an eye. Each item whispered stories of the past. I felt compelled to touch the bear, its fur coarse and worn. Suddenly, the laughter became louder, echoing in my ears, filling me with dread. It was like a taunt, teasing me. I spun around, hoping to see something, anything that would explain it. Instead, I found the door had closed, sealing me in. Anxiety gripped my throat. I rushed to the door, my fingers fumbling as I pulled at the handle. It wouldn't budge. Panic surged as I realized I was trapped. "Let me out!" I yelled, pounding on the door. Silence answered me. Then, I felt a chill sweep through the room. I turned to see a figure standing by the window. My breath caught in my throat. It was a small girl, her hair dark and tangled, eyes wide as if she were staring into my soul. "Who are you?" I whispered, fear coursing through me. She didn't respond, just tilted her head. Behind her, the window began to glow with an ethereal light. Shapes moved outside, shadows flitting between the trees, and a voice, a low whisper, called my name. "Help us!" The girl's presence was both frightening and oddly comforting. I was frozen, trying to decipher her message. "What do you want from me?" I asked, desperation tinging my voice. In response, the girl stepped closer, holding something out. It was a drawing, crumpled and aged. I reached for it, dreading what I might see. As I unfolded it, my heart skipped a beat. The image was familiar, the same woman in the photo from the library, but now surrounded by children. Their faces were bright and joyous, yet there was an unsettling darkness in their eyes. Before I could process it, the light outside dimmed, and the room was plunged back into shadow. The girl vanished, and the laughter returned, growing louder and more frantic. My heart raced as I realized I had to find a way out. I slammed my shoulder against the door one more time. With a loud creak, it swung open. I stumbled into the hallway, gasping for breath. But as I turned to run, a voice rang out behind me. "You have to stay." I froze. Something was waiting for me in that room, something that needed my help. But why? And how was I connected to all this? I had more questions than ever as the laughter faded into the walls, leaving me alone in the dimly lit hallway. I knew I had to uncover the truth, but at what cost? I took a deep breath, my heart still hammering against my ribs. The hallway was just as dim, the shadows creeping along the walls like living things. I glanced back at the door I'd just come from. It was ajar, creaking slightly as if beckoning me to return. I knew I shouldn't go back, but a part of me felt drawn to the girl, to her silent plea. I forced my feet to move forward, each step echoing through the empty corridor. The floor creaked beneath me, adding to the unease swelling in my chest. I needed answers, but I wasn't sure where to find them. My instincts urged me to keep going, to find the source of the laughter. As I moved cautiously down the hallway, I noticed framed photographs hanging on the walls. I stopped in front of one that caught my attention. It was another family portrait. The same woman from the nursery stood proudly in the center, surrounded by children. Their smiles were bright, but their eyes held that same unnerving shadow. I felt a tightening in my chest. Who were they? I pressed my fingers against the glass, and as I did, a cold gust of wind swept through the hall. The lights flickered, and I shivered. I quickly stepped away, glancing around. The air felt different now, charged. I edged toward the end of the hallway, where a faint sound drew my attention, a soft murmuring, low and indistinct. My heart raced as I approached a door slightly cracked open at the end of the corridor. The murmurs grew louder, flowing through the gap like a river of whispers. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open. The room beyond was dark, draped in shadows, but the source of the sound was clear now. A small group of children sat in a circle, their backs turned to me. They were silent, faces downcast, as if engaged in some secret activity. "Excuse me?" I called out, my voice trembling. No response. I stepped into the room, the whispers fading to a hush. The atmosphere felt heavy, pressing down on me. The children didn't turn around or acknowledge my presence. Then I saw a figure hovering at the edge of the circle, a dark silhouette. My breath quickened. It looked like the girl from the nursery, but there was something wrong. She seemed to flicker in and out of focus, like she wasn't entirely there. Panic surged within me as I took a step back, but the door slammed shut behind me. "Stay with us," the girl whispered, her voice a haunting echo. "You have to help us find the truth." The urgency of her tone sent a chill down my spine. What truth? I was already overwhelmed, and now I was trapped with these children. I needed to escape, but I also felt an undeniable pull to stay. I didn't understand what was happening, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was woven into this story somehow. Before I could gather my thoughts, one of the children turned. Their eyes were wide, and a smile spread across their face, but it did nothing to reassure me. "Are you here to play?" they asked, and suddenly, I felt an icy grip around my heart. That's when I saw a flicker of movement in the shadows behind them, something dark and malevolent, watching. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I was frozen, caught between a choice I never wanted to make. I could barely process what was happening. The child's smile felt wrong, twisted in a way that made my stomach churn. I wanted to scream, but the words lodged in my throat. I was suffocated by dread, like a weight pressing down on my chest. The figure behind the children shifted slightly, and I caught a glimpse of its face, or what should have been a face. It was a mass of shadow, indistinct yet somehow haunting. My mind raced with thoughts of escape. The door was still closed, and I could feel every second slipping away. "Play with us," the child said again, their voice growing more insistent. The other children began to murmur in agreement, echoing the words as if they were part of a chant. "Please," I managed to whisper, "I need to leave." But it sounded feeble even to my own ears. The energy in the room felt oppressive, like the walls were closing in. I looked around desperately for another way out. That's when I noticed a faint glow emanating from a corner of the room. It was weak, flickering like a dying flame, barely illuminating the space. There, lying on the floor, was an old, wooden box. My breath hitched. It looked familiar. The same box I had seen in the nursery, the one with the same intricate carvings. As if sensing my realization, the girl's shadowy figure drifted closer to me. "You must open it," she urged, her voice slipping through the air like smoke. "It holds the key." I felt a surge of panic. The last thing I wanted was to touch anything tied to whatever curse had trapped these children. But the intensity of her gaze, though void of clarity, compelled me. I stepped cautiously toward the box, my heart racing wildly. The children's laughter suddenly erupted, filling the room with a discordant melody. Their voices transformed into a cacophony, swirling around me. I glanced back at the figure, whose expression was now a blend of sadness and desperation. "Help us," she said, her tone softening. "You can't leave without uncovering the truth." I hesitated, my hand hovering above the box. I could almost hear the secrets contained within, whispering to me. With trembling fingers, I lifted the lid, a creak echoing through the silence. Inside, I found something small and metallic, a locket. The surface was tarnished, yet the engraving looked new. As I picked it up, the air shifted dramatically. The laughter ceased. The children turned to me, their faces now fraught with tension. "What did you find?" one asked, their voice laced with fear. I glanced back at the locket, hesitant. I knew I had crossed some line, awakened something that should have remained buried. And that flickering figure near the edge of the circle, lurking in the shadows, seemed to pulse with anticipation. Then everything went dark, plunging me into silence, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the dreadful stillness. What had I done? My mind raced as dread coiled around me. I had opened Pandora's box, and I didn't know what would emerge next. I blinked, trying to adjust to the darkness. My heart pounded in my chest. It felt as if time stopped. I was utterly alone, wrapped in an eerie silence that felt alive. Was I still in the room? Or had I crossed into another dimension? The memory of the locket weighed heavily in my palm. I turned it over, examining the tarnished surface, searching for clues. But all I found were the same unfamiliar engravings. A chill crept down my spine. What did it mean? I felt the air grow colder, as if the shadows were seeping into my skin. Suddenly, a flicker of light reappeared, casting ghostly images on the walls. I could make out the children again, their faces more defined but still twisted with dread. "You have to show it to her," one whispered, his wide eyes reflecting a fear that stirred something deep inside me. "Who?" I stammered, but the words evaporated into the void. I could see the shadowy figure begin to take shape again, curling around the edges of the light. The children flinched, retreating slightly as if afraid of it, the girl looking back at me with pleading eyes. "Show her the locket," she urged. "You must help." I hesitated. I didn't even know what I was committed to by simply holding this object. Whatever this thing was, it seemed vital to understanding their plight. But should I trust a shadow? I could feel my instincts screaming at me to flee. But the girl stepped forward, defiance shining through her fear. "If you don't, we'll be trapped forever." Their situation was unnerving. Maybe by revealing the locket, I could find a way to help them and find my own escape. I took a deep breath, steadied my racing heart, and stepped closer to the shadow figure. "Is this what you want?" I called out, holding the locket aloft. The light around me flickered with intensity, and I felt an unsettling pull within me, urging me to join the shadows. The figure lurched forward, and an awful feeling snaked through my gut. It wasn't just watching, it was hungry for something. I couldn't tell if it was after the locket or after me. Then, before I knew it, the children were chanting again, their voices merging into an unintelligible hum that swirled around me. "You must make the choice," they gasped in unison, as the shadows thickened. I could sense the locket's weight becoming heavier in my hand. The air tightened, as if it were a noose slowly closing around my throat. My instincts screamed to run, but the children's faces were imploring, desperate. And then, something broke in the darkness. A flash of images blitzed through my mind: pain, loss, grief. I dropped the locket, the cold metal clattering on the ground, and much to my horror, as it made contact, the floor beneath me started to vibrate violently. "Don't!" one of the children shouted, panic flooding their voice, but it was too late. Suddenly, everything exploded into chaos. The shadows twisted, and I staggered back as they lunged forward, a cacophony of cries and whispers drowning out my thoughts. I didn't know what I had unleashed, but I felt it. Whatever truth I had touched was far darker than I ever anticipated. And in that moment of utter chaos, the ground beneath my feet shattered. I fell, tumbling into an unseen abyss as the ground cracked and broke apart beneath me. The shadows swirled around, thick and cloying, swallowing the remnants of light. The last memory of the children's faces lingered in my mind, frozen in horror. I braced myself for impact, but the fall felt endless. Suddenly, I hit something soft, a cold surface, like packed snow but darker. I gasped, trying to catch my breath, the chill wrapping around me. I pushed myself up, heart racing, my fingers brushing against the ground that felt unsettlingly solid despite my fall. As my eyes adjusted to the gloom, a faint luminescence flickered ahead. I stumbled toward the light, my pulse racing. The room I found myself in was cavernous and dusty, lined with shelves filled with objects I didn't recognize: old books, trinkets, and what looked like faded photographs. The light grew steadier, revealing a small table in the center, and that's when I saw it: a mirror. Drawn in, I approached the glass, my reflection blurred and distorted. The surface rippled like water, and I leaned closer, both mesmerized and terrified. That's when the shadows seemed to coalesce behind me. I whipped around, heart pounding, but saw nothing except the remnants of the darkness that had just clawed me from another realm. "What have you done?" a voice hissed suddenly from the shadows, sending a shiver down my spine. I couldn't see who or what had spoken, but the word struck a chord deep inside me. I didn't mean to," I stammered, panic rising in my throat. "I was trying to help them. They needed me." Silence followed, thick and suffocating. Then, I heard the soft patter of feet echoing from the corners of the room. Shadows flickered and revealed twisted figures that looked alarmingly like the children from before. "We are bound by what you choose," the girl spoke, her eyes glimmering with an otherworldly light. "You must decide to either help us, or you will remain here, lost in time." I looked at the mirror again, wondering if that was the key. Maybe it showed more than just my reflection. I stepped closer, heart racing. The surface rippled again, but this time, it transformed into images of the children in a happier time, playing, laughing, completely unaware of what awaited them. My fingers tingled, and I wondered if touching it would reveal the answers I desperately sought. "Do it," one of the boys urged, desperation leaking into his tone. "You have to break the curse." But as I extended my hand, a dark figure flickered within the frame, the shadow that had chased me. I jerked my hand back, fear surging. What if it wants me to stay? "Do it," the girl insisted again, her voice echoing louder. "If you don't, we'll be trapped in darkness forever." The tension was palpable, the shadows growing restless as the darkness threatened to engulf my very soul. Making a decision felt impossible. I was torn between the lure of the mirror and the chilling weight of uncertainty. That's when I remembered the locket, abandoned on the broken ground back in the other world. I needed it to stop whatever was coming for me. Just as I formed a plan, the air shifted, and the ground trembled again beneath my feet. I realized time was running out. The shadows were not just watching, they were closing in. I had to act. The choice lay heavy before me. I had to retrieve the locket and confront whatever darkness awaited me. But deep down, I could also feel the mirror calling, like a whisper urging me to reveal more than I had bargained for. I stood frozen, ready to plunge into the unknown, whatever that might mean for myself and for them. I hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment wrap around me. Shadows flitted at the edges of my vision, thrumming with a restless energy. But I couldn't forget the locket, the one thing that might save the children and myself from this nightmare. The mirror beckoned, yet the grasp of dread tightened in my chest. "Stop!" I shouted, hoping to drown out the quiet chaos around me. The twisted figures froze, their expressions a mix of anguish and longing. "I'll help you. Just give me a moment." As the last word left my mouth, the ground shook again, this time with a violent force. I stumbled, catching myself against the edge of the table. The mirror rippled wildly, reflecting an image of myself standing against a swirling tide of darkness. "Find it." The girl urged again, her voice rising above the clamor. "The locket is the key to setting us free." Before I could respond, a sharp crack echoed through the room, like thunder from a distant storm. The shelves began to splinter, objects rattling and tumbling down toward me. I squinted through the chaos, and my eyes fell on a small flash of gold lying partially obscured beneath the debris. Yes. The locket. Ignoring the deepening shadows creeping closer, I lunged for it. My fingers closed around the cool metal, and an electric shock coursed through me. I felt a connection, a bond to the children and their trapped souls. "Now, hurry." The boy called out, a hint of urgency in his eyes. "You need to use it." I clutched the locket tightly, its surface warm against my palm. I turned toward the mirror once more. This time, instead of panic, a surge of determination filled me. I wanted to break the cycle, to end the shadow's grip on the children. "What do I do?" I shouted, desperate for guidance. "Open it." The girl replied, her voice an urgent whisper. "Let love guide you." With trembling hands, I opened the locket, the hinges creaking under pressure. Inside was a small, worn photograph of the children, their smiles radiating innocence and joy. Suddenly, the darkness encroaching around me began to retreat. I could feel the pull of the hope contained within the photograph. It surged through me, igniting a warmth that pushed back against the shadows. But then, a deep growl echoed from behind, cold and ominous. The dark figure I had seen in the mirror emerged, its eyes burning with rage. It lunged towards me, drawing nearer, seeming to absorb the light emitted by the locket. "Stay back!" I yelled, instinctively holding the locket out like a shield. The warmth intensified, enveloping me as I focused on the children's laughter, their joy amplifying the light. "What are you doing?" The girl cried out, her expression shifting from hope to fear. I fixed my eyes on the mirror, determined to confront whatever darkness awaited. "I'm breaking the curse," I shouted defiantly. The shadow paused, then hesitated, almost recoiling as if the love within the locket stung. An unsettling silence enveloped the room. "Don't let it take you," the boy warned, but I felt powerful now. The light grew brighter, forming a barrier around me. I took a deep breath, ready to unleash the energy swirling within. At that moment, everything hung in the balance. The shadows swirled, the darkness writhed, and I knew this was my chance to either save everyone or condemn us all to oblivion. Then, the mirror shimmered violently, and a voice echoed, "You cannot win." A chill ran through me as realization crashed down. Something horrifying had just begun. I focused on the locket, determined to channel its light against the encroaching darkness. But the shadow lunged forward again, its dark form stretching and distorting as it reached for me. Heart pounding, I shoved the locket closer, almost as if it could physically push the shadow back. "Please." Just go away. I yelled, my voice shaking. I could feel the air thickening, like the weight of a storm pressing down. But instead of fear, anger sparked inside me. I wasn't going to let this end without a fight. I thought about the children's smiles in the photograph, their laughter echoing in my mind. It was more than just a memory, it was a shield, a reminder of the innocence this darkness sought to consume. The figure hesitated again, and in that brief moment of uncertainty, I summoned every ounce of strength I had. You have no power here. I screamed. Suddenly, the locket pulsed, releasing a blinding light that ricocheted off the walls. The room illuminated, revealing the twisted figures of the children, their faces reflecting both fear and hope. I could feel their energy mingling with mine, weaving a tapestry of light that pushed back against the shadow. Now. Together. The girl shouted, and I sensed their will intertwining with mine. I closed my eyes, concentrating on the love within the locket. You will not take them. I cried out, summoning the warmth until it blazed, a beacon cutting through the darkness that laughed and screamed. But just then, the shadow lashed out again, directly striking the locket. I felt a sharp pain tear through my hand, as if the darkness was trying to siphon my light. No. I gasped, gripping the locket harder, willing it to respond. In the mirror. The boy's voice pierced through the chaos. You have to reflect your love. I opened my eyes and pivoted towards the mirror, the shadows swirling ominously, as if they knew what I was about to do. In that instant, I saw my own reflection distorted by fear. But beneath that fear was determination. I raised the locket high, letting the light radiate from it, directing it toward the mirror. With a deep breath, I shouted, "Let love break you apart." The light surged from the locket, a beam of raw energy striking the mirror like lightning. The glass convulsed, the reflection warping as the shadow writhed in agony. I dared a glance at the children, their eyes wide with hope, but I could feel something slipping. A new wave of darkness rushed in, sharp and suffocating. What is happening? I felt the pulse of panic building. Was this all for nothing? Don't stop. The girl urged, her voice barely audible above the chaos. I locked eyes with the mirror again and pushed even harder, forcing every ounce of love, every precious memory of the children into the light. I will not let you win. But before I could see the result of my efforts, everything went dark. A deafening silence enveloped me, swallowing my senses. I felt weightless, suspended in nothingness. Confusion ripped through me. Had I failed? Had the darkness overtaken me? And then, a whisper echoed in the void. You cannot hold on forever. I clenched my eyes shut, preparing for the end, but then I felt a familiar presence. The children. They were still with me. That realization sparked something deep inside. I had to keep fighting. Just then, I felt the unmistakable warmth of the locket against my palm, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. I wouldn't let it be in vain. I willed my body to move, to reach out for that light, but something ominous lurked just outside my awareness. Everything around me shifted, and I was suddenly aware that I was not alone in this void. Where are you? I thought, heart racing, not knowing what was coming next. I had to discover what lay beneath the darkness before it consumed me entirely. Just when I thought I would be lost in the vast emptiness indefinitely, shapes began to emerge from the darkness. The same twisted figures I had encountered shifted into view, those children, their faces marked by confusion and unease yet glimmering with a sense of hope. They were here, and somehow, that gave me strength. The air shifted around us, growing thick with anticipation. The shadow loomed behind them, cruel and insatiable, pulsating and ready to consume. You have to be strong, the girl whispered, her voice cutting through the clamor of my fear. A wave of warmth enveloped me, and in that moment, I realized that I was not just fighting for myself, but for them too. I took a deep breath, visualizing the locket and the love it held inside. You won't take them from me, I declared, my voice resonating through the void, finding solidity once again. Desperation churned inside me, squeezing out every ounce of strength I had. The memory of the children playing together flooded back sun-drenched days where laughter reigned, free from fear and shadows. I could almost hear it again, rising like a tide. I closed my eyes to focus and reached for the love that had ignited within me. As I did, I felt the darkness shift slightly, as if sensing my resolve. Driven by a new urgency, I called out, "Open the way." I knew we had to break the grip of the shadow, or it would consume us whole. The children gathered closer, forming a circle, their hands brushing against mine. "Together," the girl urged. "We're stronger together." As their connection intertwined with mine, warmth surged through me as if we were tapping into some ancient wellspring of strength, the illuminated essence of our shared memories shining against the backdrop of the darkness. The shadow loomed ominously, exhaling cold breath that brushed against our skin. "You think love can save you?" It growled, its voice screeching like metal against stone. "You are nothing." "Love is everything," I shot back, and it felt true, each word falling out like a stone into still water, sending ripples of light that illuminated the darkness. "You can't take our memories, our joy." The moment I proclaimed it, the locket in my hand glowed fiercely, and the darkness began to waver. Fragments of light bloomed from it, and I imagined those fragments breaking apart the shadows that sought to engulf us. With determined hearts, we made our stand, encircling each other, our voices gesturing to push the darkness back. "We will not be afraid." We shouted as one, and suddenly, I felt the ground beneath us tremble, the weight of history reduced by our resolve. The shadows screamed as our voices reached a crescendo, and in that instant, I understood that this battle wasn't one of flesh and bone but of spirit and soul. The darkness began to erode, imploding inward, collapsing under the force of our shared memories and unwavering hope. But just as we sensed a shift in the balance, a crack of darkness surged forth, racing toward us. I felt fear coursing through me like wildfire, igniting wild thoughts of what I had released. "Stay strong," I urged, feeling the pulse of the locket surge with our collective will. Then, the locket resonated deeply, sending waves of warmth cascading through the children. "Together," we shouted once more. As if our voices were woven into a single powerful thread, we shouted our memories back at the shadow that had once seemed insurmountable. Suddenly, an iridescent light enveloped me. I felt myself lifted, transcending the shadows as we connected to something greater, our bond sealing the darkness away, no longer capable of haunting us. A sense of weightlessness enveloped me, like I was shedding the burdens that had tethered me to that twisted plane of existence. But just as I felt free, everything began to dissolve around me. Images flickered through my mind: a cottage in the woods, children laughing, and that mother with her bright smile, painting. The image of the house flashed before my eyes, and the memories poured in like sunlight through the clouds, filling the empty spaces with warmth. Just like that, I was back in my old living room, breathless, the locket still in my hand. The house around me was as it had always been, though an echo of familiarity lingered in the air, faint but comforting. Yet, beyond the newfound silence, I felt the weight of change, as if the house had been released from an ancient tension. A part of me still lingered in uncertainty. Had we truly banished the darkness? I turned toward the photographs that hung on the wall. The faces were calm now, the children and the mother looking at me with tranquil smiles, as if they understood that our intertwined stories had finally reached a resolution or perhaps a new chapter. Stepping outside, I gazed at the sun just rising above the horizon, bathing everything in soft light. For the first time since moving into this old house, I felt a sense of peace. Yet, as I walked down the street, I caught a glimpse of the old library, and the librarian's warning echoed in my thoughts. Would other secrets linger among the town's shadows? Would I ever know what truly lurked in the depths of that nursery? Some doors remain locked, I realized, even if we stopped the darkness from spreading. As I moved forward, I tucked the locket safely away, feeling the soft weight of it pressed against my heart. I wouldn't forget the children and the warmth of their memories. But beyond that lingering connection, I understood that life was a mosaic of mysteries, both natural and supernatural, weaved into the unusually ordinary moments of our days. And isn't that what made it beautiful? I moved on, armed with the knowledge of both light and shadow, uncertainty like shadows, constant yet ethereal.